What's up guys, it's USA Specialist and we need to talk about DICE. So as of May 12th, right at the end of the week, DICE and EA adopted a new harassment and community guidelines where the team can now subjectively ban players they feel are harassing or threatening the devs. The new policy outlines actions that can get players banned, such as cheating, spam, inappropriate content, and hurtful language. Mostly things you'd expect, and perhaps something DICE should have been clear about years ago instead of retroactively banning people almost 2 years into the game's lifecycle. Funny enough, I'd say the community is probably the healthiest it's been since release, and they're just now taking action to defend their devs, while they didn't do anything in the beginning when the entire community came crashing down on them, but that's a different discussion. With this new community policy has come a wave of bans, and while many are totally acceptable, like banning players who threaten the devs or use slurs, there's two major issues. And both issues are well demonstrated by the banning of Battlefield content creator and competitive player, Enders. Enders is a rising creator in the Battlefield community who's garnered his audience by being very tough on games, especially Battlefield, where he's used his skills as one of the best players on the title to make points about DICE's lackluster live service, a failing game design, and broken game mechanics. Enders is known for making harsh comments about the game and questioning the ability of the studio when it comes to creating AAA content. But suddenly, after years of doing this, DICE has decided to not ban him on Twitter or social media, but has instead banned him on the game, taking away his revenue on Twitch and YouTube, instead of restraining him from commenting on social media where he could actually engage with the devs. And that's my first issue. Enders is known for his harsh comments on Twitter when it comes to Battlefield, and banning him on the game does not fix that. Instead of engaging Enders with a discussion or a warning, they banned him and others outright on the product, where they weren't able to interact with the devs in the first place. So DICE is now banning players on one platform for what they did or said on a different platform, as rumor has it Enders' ban may have been directly tied to how he spoke about the devs, and more specifically lead weapon designer Alex Formaso, while on stream or in a recent video. And while I do agree that Enders can be rude, there's two things. Number one, his videos on YouTube are rather down to earth. He's always critical of the game, but often suggests changes and does honestly want the best for Battlefield, as it's also in his best interest. He's brutally honest, and more often than not is coming from a real place of objective criticism, speaking on the game's mechanics or live service features, just like any other frustrated fan. While I would say you could call him rude or aggressive in how he delivers his content, I wouldn't say he's bigoted or hateful against any certain groups. He just knows that Battlefield as a product can and should be better. Secondly, Enders' online presence, especially on Twitter, is a little bit of a character in my opinion. His blunt language and streamed reactions are at the core of his brand. And while that's far from what I'd ever want on my channel, the fact is that it takes a lot of voices with a lot of different opinions to make Battlefield a diverse and large community, some of which DICE won't enjoy. Enders is that over-the-top character in the community who tells it straight and cuts out the shit, similar to other icons like Dr. Disrespect on Call of Duty. While I come from a more analytical standpoint, Enders is reaction-based and relatable, but together we create content and expand the community as a diverse group with different takes, talents, and styles. But moving on to the larger issue I have with this is that DICE's new guidelines are already being used to silence the community and create an artificial tone of voice within the fanbase. DICE has always had a habit of staying away from critical creators like myself because they understand a lot of the criticism is warranted and don't want to support creators who cover leaks or other sensitive topics. And instead, they focus on lifting up creators who show no criticism whatsoever, creating a section of the community who video after video feel they have to create a positive narrative in order to get special treatment, which honestly is the case. Enders is the dead opposite of that. He's taken off within the fanbase by purposely pushing back against the game and giving the community a new home for anyone who still feels betrayed by the current state of the franchise. And again, instead of banning him from interacting with the devs or official accounts, they banned him in-game, taking away his revenue and platform. Now showing that if players don't comply across all platforms, they lose everything they've worked for. DICE has a reputation of blaming its community for the company's own failures, constantly calling their paying customers bigots and stupid, and even hosting media events to roast their own consumer base. And every year they somehow dig themselves deeper into this hole and then cry when fans again point out how they continue to slide further and further downhill, blaming the fans even though we support them by buying millions of copies of their product. At the end of the day, DICE has now set a precedent, artificially silencing a creator in order to shift the tone of the community, and whether you agree with Ender's ban or not, the studio now shows it has the means to silence its critics and take away their product in order to create a fanbase that more praises them. Now, as I wrap up this video, I want to leave a few more comments aside from the topic of Enders. First off, DICE definitely can and should ban players who are bigoted, hateful, or threatening within their game. However, it's hard to take their new policy seriously when every day I see people on Battlefield calling each other slurs in chat and hear about hackers on Battlefield 5. Meanwhile, Battlefield is banning players for out-of-game reasons without warning. I fully support DICE in cleaning up some of that language, but perhaps they should give players better tools in-game to mute other players, or at least have a consistent application of the guidelines. And finally, I'm coming from this as an art director who works in the New York metro area under a publicly traded financial firm. I see people get fired right in front of me, teams get blamed for multi-million-dollar failures, and endless harsh criticism of others in my own work. The team over at DICE is made up of long-time, college-educated, world-class professionals funded by a multi-billion-dollar company that sells hundreds of millions of dollars of product every year, and they need to act like it. Year after year of commercial failures, shakeups, and drop services is a massive failure for a company with these resources, so as a whole, DICE and EA especially need to get it together, much like Microsoft and Arcane after Redfall. But guys, drop your comments below and tell me how DICE should handle this new policy moving forward. For everything else Battlefield, stay tuned and subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for watching.